Welcome. This will be my video on the tournament. I'm going to try to get the title exactly right. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters from 1993, and this is based purely on the Sega Genesis version. I played this through the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection, and I will do the other two versions of this particular game, but I decided that I wanted some time between them, so it's not going to be immediately. And this will be a spoiler-free review. I doubt I'll do a thoughts section. I guess we'll see at the end of the review, but there will not be spoilers without me first saying that I'm entering the thoughts section with spoilers. And I believe the game is properly rated E for everyone, so will this video be. And I really love this one, so yeah, I think we're gonna dive right into the plot. Master Splinter is kidnapped and taken to Dimension X, and so you have to follow as one of the turtles, or you can also play as... Oh, right, I should say, this is only going to cover the single-player experience. I have not played this in multiplayer. I couldn't tell you anything about that. But yeah, you can play as one of the four turtles, or Casey Jones, April O'Neil. I think the other one is called Sisyphus. I have to admit, I don't remember Sisyphus from any turtle story. I know the myth. And Ray, the Manta Ray, who I think I may have mentioned before on camera, might be my favorite, at least non-turtle character in this universe. He was in just a really fantastic comic that was probably my favorite piece of turtle media growing up. That really explored how lonely he was because of how different... it's this thing of like, I mean, at least the turtles have each other and Master Splinter, but Ray kind of had no one. So very, very cool to have him appear here. And as you fight your way through, of course they do the thing where it is, you fight, essentially everyone. So yes, you do, even though you're playing either as a turtle or someone working with the turtles, you are going to fight the turtles and yourself and the other people working with you and such. They explain it as clones, which, like, I mean, that works. It is a tiny bit awkward that nearly everyone you fight in this is a clone version of you, or I mean, not you specifically, but someone you would normally fight alongside, and then also one of yourself. But that is, of course, the issue you run into. That sometimes it works better for this kind of thing to just be, an actual fighting tournament. It is funny that is called tournament, but I guess they had to tell people, no, this one's actually like a fighting tournament game, which I'm going to stop saying on camera that they took too long to make one of those. I don't know. I used to have no idea that these three existed, but evidently I was wrong when I declared that was not. But yeah, this kind of thing works better like a Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, where, yeah, some of them have like personal beef with each other, but otherwise, yeah, it's a bunch of different, not always human beings, but a bunch of different fighters entering a tournament. So, but yeah, along the way, you visit a bunch of different planets. Basically, that's what the fighting stages are, which is a place where it works well that this is adapted from a comic book, because that is something that, sometimes Mortal Kombat does well, to be clear. But, some of these games, it's just like, oh, okay, that's like, it's kind of cool, but that's just like a place that I've heard of existing in the real world, where in this game, it's not the case. I'll get into detail later. And yeah, as a fighting game, they do a good job of having everyone have something really useful in fights, and they do the classic stuff of, some have greater range, some have greater speed, stuff like that. And yeah, like I would definitely say, I'm not, I have not forgotten any of the fighters in this. They all have something really, really memorable, which, yeah, I think that pretty much is what we're gonna... Yeah, they all fight in, distinct enough different ways. And yeah, the turtles do indeed have their iconic weapons. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to give away what the enemy characters are, but I will say there's at least some that are... sorry, the ones that aren't clones. I mean, they fit in some that I was very happy to see here. Now, I feel like that pretty much gets us to the let's see. Yeah, as a fighting tournament game, it is about what you would expect for the time. The yeah, like there are ranged attacks, there's the ability to block, you can jump, duck. There are attacks that are very fast, there are attacks that are difficult to block. It's it doesn't really break new ground necessarily there, and I'm not saying it really needed to. I will say it's not just getting by on the license. There is enough creativity here. I probably don't have to say it out loud, but I will. Obviously, the one that I reviewed some years back, which at this point, actually, I don't even remember what it's called, but, it'll pop up if you search my channel. My research will sort of do it right now. But yeah, for, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But that one is, of course, better. I explain all the cool stuff about that one in my video on it. Anyway, I think that pretty much... Yeah. The camera is about what you would expect. It moves as the characters do, and it does... there is this thing where you cannot move like extremely far away from your opponent. That would obviously not be that fun. And I think, and to be clear, I wasn't like trying to. I just thought that the enemy would walk closer, and then I hit a sort of invisible wall until they started moving closer. And oh right, I should also say this is based on the regular just one-player mode. I've read about what tournament mode is. I'm not screwing with that. Like, if this was like years ago that I was playing it, maybe I would try it, but that's not going to happen with my wrists the way they are now. Anyway, I suppose... Yeah, so the character design is great, and I appreciate, what can you do? They're pretty much just, from the comics, and so, or not necessarily the comics exactly, but, not the original, I mean, not the, but they're somewhat closer to, for example, the animated show and such. Nevertheless, they do a good job, both matching those pretty closely, but also just, yeah, giving them distinct looks and such. And yeah, the AI is great. The game will definitely challenge you. And keep in mind also there are multiple difficulty settings, and you can also, I think it defaults to like 3 match, best 2 out of 3. Yeah, you can set that to 1, so you only have to beat each enemy once if you would like, because I certainly did. And I think that brings us to, yeah, the atmosphere, like genuinely they did a really great job here with just like it feels very kind of hostile in a way that I feel like I've been overusing that word recently, but it just the way that in videos, I mean, I would say this is probably the most hostile of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games I've played so far. And that does work well for this kind of, again, like technically the story isn't really a tournament. I'm actually not 100% sure. I guess they figure that, no, yeah, it's that classic thing of, the villain wants to soften up or maybe see if they can even make it to the end kind of thing. Again, this kind of thing does make a little bit more sense if there is, like, it's the kind of thing of like, okay, I get why I have to fight through multiple enemies before I get to fight the big bad. Why is it one-on-one though? Like, why not just assemble more? And this is again, this is like they have like an army of foot soldiers and those rock soldiers and such. So it's like, why are you not, you know, it doesn't really make sense, but it's fine. Again, ultimately, this kind of thing, this kind of game genre does work better if you are just saying, no, 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 this is like a legit fighting tournament. But then, of course, sometimes that doesn't make that much sense, as I've expressed before about The Simpsons Wrestling. Is it just called The Simpsons Wrestling? Wow, they really didn't put a lot of effort even in the title, did they? But yeah, playing that one, I'm like, I don't believe that this character would ever wrestle under any circumstances. Anyway, yeah. So the cutscenes are good, and they actually they establish the clone turtles before the turtles realize Splinter is gone because they're the ones kidnapping Master Splinter. He at first mistakes them for the real turtles. Also really appreciate that it's Splinter getting kidnapped. I've expressed before, I definitely don't think it should be... I don't think it needed to be April O'Neil even once, but if they were going to do it, so far, I think I've only played one Turtles game where she gets kidnapped. I think that's enough. I think, just come up with other, we don't really need this thing of like, guys fighting for a woman kind of like, and in this one you can actually, she actually kicks ass herself. So she does have like one move that is very like coded as like, if I just heard it described, I would probably think, that's pretty misogynistic. But then like in context, it's actually really, really effective. So I don't know exactly how to feel about that. But certainly, they didn't make her like weak or anything. She is quite badass in this. And I think that brings it. Yeah, so the graphics are good. It's yeah, not a huge surprise for the Genesis, but yeah, there's a good use of color and shadow, and you really get a sense of the different planets, even though obviously you only see very little of them. Right, there's also this cool... Oh, I actually, come to think of it, I'm not sure I've seen that from other... It's been so long since I've played fighting games from back then. But in this, there's this thing where there's more than one like sort of level to a stage, so someone can knock the other one down to the stage below, and then the fight will continue there. And so they have an additional background for that. That's very cool. Quite appreciated that. The sound design is fantastic. I'm not sure it's all, but at least some of the most powerful attacks have an accompanying sound. So even if you don't immediately see that that's what they're doing, which like, a lot of cases you will, of course, but you will be alerted by the sound and react accordingly, ideally. The music is also quite good. It's not like overpoweringly intense, but it does like get the blood pumping, and you makes you want to beat up the opponent in the game. And yeah, I think it finds a good balance between being challenging and fun. And I think that pretty much, yeah. So replayability, this was, it has a high score table. Other than that, this was, of course, back when you had to play games multiple times in order to even be able to beat it in its entirety. This did not originally have save slots. In the aforementioned collection, it has one save slot. There's one save slot per game and a rewind function, and that's, that obviously means that you can retry stuff. But other than that, the first time you played all the way through this, you would almost definitely have played it a bunch of times to learn the moves and counters and such of everyone. And I feel like that brings it. Yeah, so the but yeah, obviously, as far as replayability goes, once you've beaten it once, maybe you want to try as one of the others. Once again, like you have 8 playable characters total, and you can play as any one of them from the start. And I think that, yeah, so I did not run into any bugs or glitches. And yeah, this does a fantastic job with the settings. So that's again where it's great that it's comic book adaptation kind of thing, because like, yeah, it's all different planets, and I think I already said whatever. So there's, and they are appropriate to who you're fighting. Actually, I should say, no, yeah, all of them are at least near different planets, but yeah, there is a like magma planet with, I guess, like Surtur sitting there in the background, like immobile, sure, but like gaping maw open, looking massive, and like because of the distance, he doesn't take up the entire, but like he looks like, if you like, it's good that we're not fighting him, because I'm pretty sure he could swallow both competitors in one bite, possibly even if they were at opposite ends of the screen at the time. There are planets where you can see like at least one alien in the background, like the alien life form, not xenomorph specifically, and there's one that I guess is like a space station maybe, or something along those lines, and you can see some of space outside through like a window and such. Let's see. At this point, I'm just going through. I'm not going to mention all of them, but yeah, they did a really great job on that, and yeah, that does bring us. Yeah, the each of these places feel like there's, like people could work or live here or something like that, and yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and just briefly, yeah, I'm gonna give my rating, and then I will let you know, yeah, I'll get into it. So yeah, I rate this 8 clones fought in a tournament setup, even though that doesn't really make sense as far as the, like, I don't know why they didn't just say you're gonna have to go through a fighting tournament if you want Master Splinter back. That's the only way, or something. But they just say, you'll have to come fight, you'll have to come find us in Dimension X, and anyway, out of 10. And yeah, there's almost nothing of the video left at this point, but I will just very briefly spoil the non-clones that you fight. So if you do not want to know, stop the video at this point. But yeah, so the 3 that you fight are, so I think did they call him Triceraton or something? He's again not someone I know from the source material. Not that I can recall, at least, but it's been a while. But yeah, you fight him on like, I mean, I guess the Savage Lands. You're fighting him, and there's like one of the long neck dinosaurs. Just chilling, watching the fight, presumably waiting for Littlefoot to get home. And you also fight Krang in what appears to be the Technodrome, and in the way that they display that is that there's a model of the Technodrome on a monitor in the background, which, like, I mean, yeah, I guess how else are you going to show it? Because the interior of the Technodrome doesn't reveal that it's the Technodrome. So yeah, I don't know. I guess Krang was looking up the plans, or maybe he was planning on some kind of renovation, and started to engage in it, tore down a bunch of this place, and then was told, Congress might not actually approve it. And yeah, that was very, very, very cool. I loved fighting Krang in his android suit, and it was so much cooler than I remember anything in the animated show being. But I've mentioned before, these games are a better way to get that, to do that. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, the last you fight is Karai in this, yeah, once again, an appropriate setting. So yeah, I feel like that is everything. So right, I guess I'll briefly say, so yeah, like the April O'Neil move, it's this thing where she like scratches at the air with both hands. But yeah, like, it does a lot of damage. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to block, kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I don't quite feel qualified to speak on if that is technically misogynistic, or if it's this sort of like attempt to reclaim. So I will leave that to people more qualified. And am I remembering right that they gave the Casey clone a ice planet? I mean, that's dedication to the bit. I'll give him that. Can you imagine being the Foot Clan intern who has to like look over all the different planets to find ones that are appropriate for the 8 clones? Like, that really has to suck. And then, after a while, they were just like, you know what? I'm out. I'm sorry. I want to go home. They are not paying me for overtime. You know what? You get a magma planet. I don't care that it has nothing to do with your whole deal. I haven't seen my kids in days.